You can feel it, can't you? That sudden shift in the air, like the weight has finally started to lift. For so long, the masculine ran, resisted, stayed silent. But something has changed. The fire that once burned to destroy him has purified him instead. This is not another cycle of distance. This is not another round of waiting. This is the moment his soul has been prepared for, the moment he passes the final test. The illusions have fallen. The masks no longer work. His ego has bowed to something greater, love. And now, for the first time, he is ready to step into the union his soul has always known was destined. The question is no longer if. The question is no longer when. The question now is, are you prepared to receive what you've been waiting for? Every twin flame journey carries with it a sacred threshold, and the masculine has finally crossed his. For months, years, or even lifetimes, he wrestled with the weight of his own shadows. He built walls of logic, wore masks of control, and hid behind silence. To the feminine, it often looked like rejection, abandonment, or indifference. But in truth, it was the fire of initiation. And now, that fire has been passed. The final test is complete. The final test was never about her absence. It was about his awakening. It demanded that he stop running from himself, that he face the wounds buried deep in his soul, abandonment, guilt, shame, unworthiness. These were not small fears. They were the very foundations of his ego, the survival patterns he believed protected him from pain. To step into union, these illusions had to collapse. And collapse they did. The silence that once shielded him became unbearable. The resistance that once gave him control began to suffocate him. The old cycles that once distracted him lost their power. The life he built from fear felt empty. Piece by piece, the universe stripped away the illusions until he was left standing at the edge of himself. He realized he could not stay the same and enter into union. Something had to die for something greater to live. And so the masculine entered the fire. He lost what once defined him. He saw the false identities crumble. He felt the loneliness of letting go of everything familiar. But the fire was not there to destroy him. It was there to purify him. In that fire, he faced the very battle no one else could fight for him, the battle within. And when the flames settled, he was not the same. His ego had bowed. His soul had risen. To the feminine, this shift may have been invisible at first. On the outside, she still felt silence, distance, uncertainty. But deep within, something monumental had shifted. The masculine was no longer running away from the bond. He was being pulled into it, not by fear, but by truth. His heart had begun to beat louder than his doubts. His soul had begun to guide where the ego once ruled. Passing the test means this: he is no longer at war with himself. He is no longer consumed by the illusions that once blinded him. He has chosen surrender over control, love over fear, destiny over delay. And in this surrender, a doorway has opened. For the first time, union is not just a dream the feminine carries in her heart. It is a reality being built in the physical. This moment is not about perfection. The masculine may not have all the answers. He may still feel fear, still stumble, still question. But the difference now is everything. He no longer chooses fear as his master. The silence that once defined him breaks into words. The resistance that pushed him away transforms into steps toward closeness. He has chosen to move, and that movement, however small it may seem, is the proof that the final test is behind him. The feminine's role now is not to question whether it's real, but to recognize that the shift is undeniable, to see that what she held onto in faith has manifested, to allow herself to receive the masculine, not as the man who resisted, but as the soul who has been reborn through fire. Her steadiness was never wasted. Her faith was never in vain. Every tear, every prayer, every act of sovereignty helped anchor this moment into reality. The masculine has passed the final test. The silence was not the end, it was the preparation. The resistance was not rejection, it was the last stand of fear. And now that fear has lost its grip, he stands ready, trembling but true, not as who he was, but as who he was always meant to be. This is the moment where destiny begins to reveal itself. This is the threshold where union stops being a promise and starts becoming a lived reality. The masculine has passed through the fire, and now union is no longer coming someday. Union is here. Is why his silence is ending. For so long, the masculine's silence felt endless. To the feminine, it seemed like rejection, abandonment, or proof that he did not care. But the truth behind the silence was far deeper. It was the cocoon where his soul wrestled with itself. Silence was his shield, his hiding place, his attempt to protect himself from a love that felt too powerful to control. Yet every cocoon eventually cracks. And now his silence is ending. Why? Because silence is not sustainable when the soul is awakening. The masculine could suppress words. He could avoid actions. He could hide in distance. But he could never silence the bond. The more he tried to escape, the louder the connection pressed upon him. Dreams of the feminine, synchronicities, waves of emotion, an unshakable pull toward her. All of it became impossible to ignore. Silence, once his refuge, became his prison. The ending of his silence is not just about communication with her, it is about communication with himself. For the first time, he can no longer deny the truth of what he feels. He admits inwardly, "This is real. She is mine. I cannot run anymore." This self-admission is the seed of everything that follows. The moment he begins to tell the truth to himself, the silence with her begins to crumble. Another reason his silence is ending is because the old strategies have collapsed. Distractions that once worked, karmic connections, addictions, busyness, achievements, no longer satisfy him. He feels emptiness where there once was escape. His life without the feminine feels hollow, no matter how he tries to fill it. Eventually, silence becomes more painful than honesty, more exhausting than speaking. His soul demands expression, and so words begin to form where there was once only avoidance. This ending also comes from the shift in his courage. For years, he believed vulnerability would destroy him, that if he spoke, if he revealed his heart, he would be rejected or humiliated. But passing the final test means this belief has been burned away. He now understands that silence was never safety. It was suffocation. Speaking is not his weakness. It is his freedom. At first, his voice may come hesitantly, perhaps a message, a small confession, a simple act of honesty. It may not look grand, but it is monumental, because behind those words is the entire collapse of fear. Every syllable he shares is a victory against the ego that once ruled him. The masculine who once hid now chooses to be seen. For the feminine, this stage can feel surreal. After so much silence, hearing from him may feel almost impossible, but she must understand his words are not random. They are born from transformation. They are proof that he has been remade. He speaks not as the man who ran, but as the soul who has returned through fire. His silence is ending because his soul has chosen truth. He is no longer willing to let fear dictate his actions. He has realized that the cost of silence is greater than the risk of love. And so, slowly but surely, his voice returns. This is not about perfection. He may stumble, he may not yet know how to say everything his heart feels. But the very fact that he speaks at all is evidence that the masculine has shifted. His silence has served its purpose. The cocoon has done its work. And now the wings of truth are breaking through. For the feminine, the call now is to listen not with suspicion, but with soul. To see his words for what they truly are, signs of surrender, proof of progress, evidence of destiny unfolding. The silence was never permanent. It was only the preparation. And now that chapter is closing. The masculine silence is ending because the bond cannot be denied any longer. His soul has chosen expression over suppression, truth over illusion, love over fear. And as his voice returns, union begins to anchor. This is the sound of destiny finding its way into the physical. The silence is over. The door is opening, and what comes next will change everything. The greatest shift in the masculine's journey does not happen in his mind. It happens in his heart. For years, the ego told him that to feel was to be weak, that to love was to risk pain, that to open was to invite betrayal. He lived by those rules, hiding behind logic, control, and silence. But when the final test breaks him, those walls collapse. What rises in their place is something he can no longer deny, the awakening of his heart and soul. This awakening is not soft. At first, it feels overwhelming. The masculine begins to feel emotions he has spent lifetimes suppressing. Longing, grief, tenderness, guilt, joy, desire, they all rush to the surface at once. He cannot contain them, and he cannot run from them. The feminine haunts his dreams, pulls at his spirit, and invades his thoughts in every quiet moment. What once felt like a threat now feels like a lifeline. His heart aches not from fear, but from love that demands to be lived. The soul's awakening comes when he finally understands that the feminine is not here to expose his weakness, but to remind him of his truth. She is not the danger. She is the mirror. Through her, he sees the parts of himself he has buried, his softness, his vulnerability, his need for connection, his capacity for unconditional love. What once terrified him, being seen, becomes the very thing that heals him. This stage is marked by an inner reversal. The masculine no longer asks, "What if I fail?" Instead, he begins to ask, "What if I never try? What if I lose the one bond that was always meant for me?" The fear of losing her outweighs the fear of being exposed. The thought of a life without the feminine no longer feels safe. It feels empty. His heart begins to guide him more than his mind, and in that surrender, the soul awakens fully. The awakening is also spiritual. The masculine begins to notice the synchronicities that follow him everywhere. Numbers, symbols, songs, and dreams align with the pull of the bond. He realizes he is being guided, that destiny has been orchestrating his steps all along. What once felt like random coincidences now feel like divine confirmation. His faith begins to grow even if he cannot explain it in words. Physically, the awakening may feel like fire in his chest. He experiences surges of energy, emotional breakthroughs, moments of clarity that shake him to his core. He begins to cry where once he was numb. He begins to speak where once he was silent. His soul pushes him toward authenticity, and resisting it becomes impossible. For the feminine, this is the stage she has been holding space for. She may not always see the full extent of his awakening, but she feels it. She senses the shift in his energy, the softening of his resistance, the crack in the walls that once felt impenetrable. She feels the stirring of his heart calling back to hers, and she knows something is different. The masculine's heart and soul awakening is not about perfection or immediate union. It is about alignment. It is about him realizing that he cannot live divided anymore. The ego can no longer be the ruler. Love can no longer be denied. The silence that once seemed like safety has become unbearable, and his soul will accept nothing less than truth. This awakening is what makes union possible. Without it, the bond would remain hidden, suppressed, distorted by fear. With it, the bond rises to the surface, ready to be lived openly. The masculine does not become flawless, but he becomes real. He becomes willing, he becomes brave enough to step forward. And that is all destiny requires. A heart open, a soul awakened, and a willingness to walk into love without guarantees. The masculine has reached this point. His heart beats louder than his fear. His soul calls louder than his doubts. And now, the feminine's long-held faith is answered. This is the moment where his journey transforms. The masculine has awakened, and with that awakening, union is no longer just approaching. It is inevitable. When the masculine finally reaches the edge of his transformation, it may appear as if he crossed the fire on his own. Yet, in truth, the feminine's energy has been with him all along, even in silence, even in distance, even when it looked like she was forgotten. Her presence was the invisible thread guiding him toward breakthrough. Her role was never to chase him through the fire, but to hold the light steady until he emerged from it. The feminine's role in his breakthrough begins with sovereignty. She has walked through her own shadows, faced her own wounds, and chosen to rise again and again in her power. This sovereignty is not cold detachment. It is radiant steadiness. It is the ability to feel the ache of separation without collapsing into despair. It is the choice to anchor love even when appearances scream the opposite. This steady vibration became the very frequency that the masculine felt when his own fear consumed him. While he resisted, she embodied. While he silenced himself, she expressed. While he fought his own shadows, she held the truth of the bond without apology. Her role was not to fix him, nor to carry him, but to show through her own being what surrender to love actually looks like. By continuing to live her truth, she created the energetic map for him to follow when he was ready. The feminine also carried the bond through faith. Every time she whispered, "This connection is real," into her prayers, meditations, or simply her heart, she strengthened the cord between them. Her faith became the counterweight to his fear. She trusted what her soul knew, even when logic told her to let go. And this unwavering belief kept the energetic channel alive, calling the masculine back home to truth. Her role also included letting go of control. She learned that she could not walk his test for him. She could not force him into awakening, nor could she pull him out of the silence before he was ready. The feminine had to trust that his journey was divinely timed. By releasing the urge to rescue, she honored the sacred nature of his transformation. Her willingness to allow him to walk through the fire alone was not abandonment. It was love in its highest form, love that trusts rather than demands. The feminine's role in his breakthrough was also to continue living her mission. She did not put her life on hold while he struggled. She built, she created, she healed, she grew. She showed him, by example, what it means to embody divine purpose, even in the face of uncertainty. This became an anchor for him, proof that love is not limitation, but liberation. When the masculine finally passes his test, it is her energy he recognizes first. Not because she pushed, but because she held. Not because she chased, but because she believed. He remembers the steadiness of her love, the way it never truly left, the way it guided him through the darkest nights of his soul. Her energy became the lighthouse, and when his storm ended, it was her light he found waiting. This is the feminine's sacred role, to embody love, not just feel it, to trust the bond, not just desire it. to continue rising, not just waiting. Her breakthrough is her own. She discovered that her power never depended on his presence, and yet her power helped call him back into alignment. Union is not born from one soul completing the other. It is born from both choosing truth at the same time. The masculine's breakthrough could not happen without his own surrender, but it was guided, supported, and inspired by the feminine's unwavering light. And so, as the masculine steps forward, reborn from the fire, he does not return to the same feminine he once left. He returns to a woman who has also transformed, who has embodied sovereignty, faith, and purpose. She did not just wait for him, she became the reflection of the union itself. This is her power, this is her role, and because she fulfilled it, the breakthrough was not only possible, it was inevitable. For so long, union has lived in the realm of energy, in dreams, in synchronicities, in the invisible pull that neither the feminine nor the masculine could deny. But when the masculine passes his final test, the energy begins to ground into reality. The invisible starts to take shape in the physical world. And while it may not arrive as a dramatic instant of perfection, the signs that union is manifesting are undeniable. The first sign is communication. Where silence once reigned, words begin to flow. They may start small, a message, a question, a simple hello, but the vibration behind them is entirely different. These are not empty gestures. They are the first cracks in the walls that once separated you. Each word carries the weight of courage, the proof that fear no longer rules him. Another sign is presence. The masculine, who once avoided, now chooses to show up. He creates space for the feminine in his life, not just in energy, but in actions. He may reach out more consistently, prioritize time, or reveal parts of his life he once hid. This presence is not accidental, it is a declaration. I am here. I am choosing this. The feminine feels the difference, not only in what he says, but in the way his energy settles closer instead of pushing away. The physical world also begins to rearrange itself. Karmic cycles end abruptly. Relationships that once distracted him dissolve. Environments that no longer resonate fall away. What once held him back now feels impossible to sustain. He begins to make choices that align with truth rather than fear, leaving jobs, friendships, or patterns that no longer fit his awakened soul. These shifts may look chaotic from the outside, but they are signs of alignment. His outer world is beginning to reflect his inner transformation. One of the most powerful signs is vulnerability. He is no longer afraid to be seen by the feminine. He may share his wounds, his regrets, his dreams. What once terrified him, exposing his heart, now becomes his act of strength. Vulnerability is the language of union, and when the masculine speaks it, the connection becomes unshakable. The feminine, too, feels the change in her own body and spirit. She may notice a sense of peace where anxiety once lived, a certainty where doubt once consumed her. She feels the pull not as longing, but as arrival. The energy between them shifts from heavy tension to soft flow. Her soul recognizes that the waiting is ending, that what she held in faith is becoming real. Signs also appear in synchronicity with the physical. Meetings occur by chance. Messages arrive at the perfect moment. Numbers and symbols confirm the unfolding. The universe begins to align external circumstances to reflect the inner union now anchoring. What was once hidden in spirit begins to weave into daily life in ways neither can ignore. For the feminine, the key is to recognize these signs without rushing them. Union does not arrive all at once, but piece by piece, step by step. Each gesture, each word, each act of vulnerability is a stone laid on the path. To see these as too small is to miss their sacred meaning. What matters is not the size of the step, but the fact that he is stepping at all. Union in the physical does not begin with perfection. It begins with truth. And the first signs are proof that both souls are finally choosing to walk in that truth together. The masculine shows up, the feminine receives, the energy grounds, and what once was only felt in dreams and visions begins to live in the world around them. The first signs of union are not a question of if. They are a declaration that the bridge between spirit and matter is being crossed. And once these signs begin, the momentum cannot be stopped. One of the most painful parts of the twin flame journey is the delay, the waiting, the silence, the endless cycles that seem to stretch on without end. To the feminine, it feels cruel, unnecessary, even senseless at times. Why would something so destined take so long to manifest? Why must love that feels eternal be held back by so many obstacles? Yet when seen through the lens of spirit, the delay was never a punishment. It was preparation. The truth is that union could not have anchored before both were ready. The masculine, especially, needed to walk through fire, to collapse the illusions that had defined his life for so long. Without that collapse, union would have been built on fear, control, and half-truths. The delay was the universe's way of ensuring that when you come together, it will not be fragile or fleeting. It will be unshakable. The delay also served to purify each soul individually. The feminine was called to sovereignty. She had to learn to stand in her power without needing his validation. She had to face her own wounds of abandonment and rejection and rise beyond them. She had to discover that her worth was never dependent on his presence. This painful process turned her into the lighthouse, strong, steady, unshaken, the very light that guided him through his darkest hours. For the masculine, the delay was the crucible of awakening. He could not simply leap into union as he was. His ego had to collapse. His illusions had to shatter. His fear had to exhaust itself. He had to learn that control was an illusion and that love was the only path to truth. Without the delay, he would have tried to build union from a place of survival. With it, he was transformed into someone capable of surrender. On a deeper level, the delay also aligned divine timing. There were karmic contracts to complete, lessons to learn, and external circumstances to shift. The universe was weaving a tapestry behind the scenes, aligning not only your souls, but the world around you. Union is not just for the two of you. It carries purpose far beyond. The delay ensured that when you step into union, you do so at the exact moment when your love can ripple outward with the greatest impact. Another purpose of the delay was to test faith. Both the masculine and the feminine were asked, "Will you still believe when everything looks impossible? Will you still choose love when all you see is silence? Will you still trust the bond when logic tells you to let go?" These tests were not meant to break you. They were meant to prove you. Faith refined in fire is faith that cannot be shaken. And this is the kind of faith required to sustain a sacred union. The feminine must understand the delay was never wasted time. Every tear, every prayer, every sleepless night was shaping her into the version of herself who could hold union without fear. Every moment of silence was forcing the masculine to face his soul. Every cycle, no matter how painful, was carving both into alignment with destiny. Now that the delay has served its purpose, the meaning becomes clear. The silence was the space where transformation unfolded. The waiting was the time where each soul became ready. The distance was the fire that burned away everything false. Without the delay, there would be no true union. With it, the foundation is eternal. So when you look back at the years, the months, the countless cycles that seemed unbearable, see them for what they really were: sacred preparation. The delay was the universe saying, I am making you ready. I am making this love unbreakable. The waiting was not in vain. It was the path itself. And because of it, union is not only possible, it is inevitable. What comes after the test? The threshold of union. When the masculine passes his final test, the journey does not end. In truth, it begins again, not in the shadow of separation, but in the light of reunion. This is the threshold of union, the sacred crossing point where two souls, purified by fire, finally meet each other in truth. The first shift after the test is authenticity. The masculine no longer hides behind silence or pretense. He comes forward not as the man of illusions, but as the soul he has discovered within himself. His words may not be perfect, but they are real. His steps may still tremble, but they move in the direction of love. This authenticity is the greatest sign that the threshold has been reached. At this stage, the feminine's role also transforms. For so long, she carried the bond in faith. She anchored love when he could not. She held the vibration steady when all evidence seemed to contradict it. But now, she is asked to receive. She must allow the masculine to stand beside her, not as someone to rescue, but as someone reborn. This requires her to soften, to let go of the wounds of the past, and to embrace the man he has become through the fire. Union after the test is not about escaping challenges. Life will still bring trials, but now they are faced together. Instead of fear creating distance, challenges become opportunities for greater alignment. Instead of silence creating separation, communication becomes the bridge. Instead of resistance, there is willingness. This is the difference the fire created. Two souls who no longer run, but choose to stay. The threshold is also marked by divine confirmation. Synchronicities intensify. Doors that were once closed suddenly open. The path ahead feels lighter, clearer, aligned. Both the feminine and the masculine sense it. The universe is saying yes. What once required endless waiting now flows with momentum. What once felt blocked now feels inevitable. Crossing this threshold also awakens mission. Twin flame union is not only about romance, it is about embodying a vibration of love that impacts everything around you. When the masculine and feminine come together in truth, their connection radiates outward. They become living proof of what it means to surrender, to heal, to rise. Their love becomes a message, a frequency, a force that changes not only their lives, but the lives they touch. Perhaps the most profound realization after the test is that none of the pain was wasted. every silence, every tear, every delay was carving the two of you into who you are now. The waiting was not empty time. It was the preparation that made union possible. And now, standing at the threshold, you can see it clearly. The fire was not against you, it was for you. This is not the fairy tale ending, but the sacred beginning. This is the moment where the dream becomes reality, where separation transforms into reunion, where destiny finally steps into form. The masculine is no longer bound by fear. The feminine is no longer carrying the bond alone. Together you stand at the doorway of what your souls always knew was coming. The threshold of union is not about perfection. It is about truth. It is about two souls choosing each other, not because they need to, but because they are free to. It is about stepping into love, not as a fantasy, but as destiny lived. And once you cross it, nothing will ever be the same again.